And wait, sorry. Yeah, that's the one. And take all related actions. If we can get the presentation over to Elisa Benson, Assistant County Executive Officer, David Reed, Director of Office of Response, Recovery and Resilience, and Jocelyn Drake, Assistant Director of Community Development and Infrastructure, and Peter Gonda and Al Zelinka of Baker Tilly. The presentation, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is a little bit of a different orientation. Good afternoon, everyone. And this is our, I think it's our first actual official progress report on Streamline Santa Cruz County's work plan. I'm going to be a little bit of the mistress of ceremonies today. We have a number of folks speaking to different components of the report back. Stephanie Hansen is filling in for Ms. Drake. She ended up not feeling well today. So Stephanie, thank you for stepping in.
Okay, yeah, this
we have,
is
as I mentioned, a number
item
of staff 14. That will be speaking to different parts of the presentation. Next slide. Or do I have it? Yep. This is just our ubiquitous problem, isn't it? There we go. So I'm going to provide a little bit of context and background. I know you all are very familiar, but we try and always root this and where we've been and where we're going. The staff report in your agenda packet, it covers many of the 14 projects, but for purposes of today and highlights where we think we actually have something new to present, we'll really be focusing on Project 12, which is really around communication, and that's our update on our UPC, our Unified Permitting Center scorecard. And then we'll be focusing on Project 14, which is the very specific body of work around looking at sort of an after action on our approach to CZU recovery. So that's really going to be the focus of today's conversation. And we have our wonderful colleagues from Baker Tilly who we engaged with that Project 14 work. So very quickly, we started this process this year in spring, March 24th to be specific, where the board had a study session that really went into some depth on the organizational assessment of the permit center and quite frankly, our developmental processes more broadly. And we had engaged Baker Tilly as an outside party to do that work. And that set of recommendations, along with additional direction from the board, we came back in the end of June with a very large work plan to put those various projects that were findings that were recommended into motion. And this is, as I mentioned, our first report back. This is just that overview. The work plan includes 14 distinct projects. And even within many of those projects, there are sub-projects. There are varying levels of interdependency and relationship between these projects. As you probably noticed in the memo and in the attachment to the memo, there's a running accounting of each of the projects. Some of these are well underway. Some actually have not begun yet because we have a limited amount of capacity. And due to those interdependencies, we have to do certain work first before we can start other work. We really think it's important to focus on, in carrying out the work plan, that we have clear expectations, clear timelines, and a lot of opportunity for staff to bring forward to the steering committee barriers or any challenges they're having. And ultimately, all of this work is really to improve our customer experience and customer service in the space of community development, that we want to be more efficient. We want to accomplish the policy goals set forward in so many of our general plan, sustainability update, all of those things, and ultimately support the housing and economic development that we know is really important, and really address that idea of service and trusting government in getting these things done. So this is just a quick reminder of the 14. We'll be focusing on 12, which is website updates and so much more. And then for rebuild process. When we come back to questions, we would welcome any questions you may have on the other projects. We also are happy to meet with any offices around the other work program elements outside of the meeting today, given our time constraints. With that, I'm going too far. Sorry, guys. I got the arrow going the wrong way. Right, with that, I am going to pass this over to Stephanie and Julie to talk about Project 12 and the commitment we made to you all in June about coming up with very clear operational metrics to start to understand whether our improvements are making the difference we're looking for.
Great, thank you, Elisa. Stephanie Hansen, Assistant Director in Community Development and Infrastructure. Today, as Elisa mentioned, we're going to talk about a couple of projects we want to highlight. One of them is the scorecards, which is part of what the board directed under program number 12. The goal in creating the dashboard in general was to display real-time building permit metrics that staff and the public could see. These include processing times, work volume, average number of routings, and the ability to see those metrics in different ways. Thank you. Not only do the dashboards assist with transparency, they're being used by management staff to inform productivity, make policy changes, and otherwise improve the permitting process. So with that, I'll turn it over to Julie Newbold, who's the architect of our dashboard, and she'll present the scorecards today.
Good afternoon, Julie Newbold, Senior Departmental Admin Analyst for CDI Planning. As Stephanie mentioned, the dashboards were launched based on board directive at the June 24th meeting. And building on that work, we've published the UPC scorecard metrics, which are available on the dashboard website as seen in this slide. The scorecards will be updated quarterly and also published on the streamlined Santa Cruz County webpage, which is slated to be released next year as part of Project 12, further refining the CDI website. Next slide, please. There is a lot of information in each scorecard, and we'll look briefly at a few screenshots to introduce you to this material. The scorecards capture key metrics as seen here in the Appointment Scheduler Survey Response screenshot. The Appointment Scheduler Survey results have a 17.8 response rate and reflect high service quality, averaging 4.7 out of 5, and effectiveness in communication and support from 95% of respondents. Next slide, please. This scorecard shows building permit plan check metrics and our target of 85% reviewed on time. You can see that 88% of the building applications were reviewed on time at the end of the third quarter, which is an improvement from a low of 44% in the last 2 years. Next slide, please. This is one of a series of scorecards examining routing or review metrics. We can see the last 3 quarters routing history averaging around 600 reviews each month, with 85 to 89% requiring 2 or fewer reviews. There are additional scorecards for each of the main reviewing agencies. You can pair the scorecards with the interactive dashboard to see information down to specific residential project types, such as ADUs, single-family dwellings, tiny homes, etc. This was a very quick introduction to the metrics that are now available online, and we invite you to investigate the other scorecard metrics. Thank you.
Thank you, Julie. Now we're going to switch gears a little bit, and we're going to talk about Project 14, which was added at the direction of the board and focuses in on CZU rebuilding. This project included an after-action review to identify barriers and opportunities for rebuilding. This, looking at these reviews really helped the team focus in on certain number of parcels that were really having a hard time. These are called conditionally not cleared permits. So we wanted to focus in on those. A lot of parcels are getting their permits, no problem, but these particular ones are of issue. We wanted to reduce the number of no status parcels, and we wanted to develop standards of practice for future recovery as well. Just wanted to focus in a little bit on what conditionally not cleared or CNC means. These are properties whose applications are unable to move forward because they're not able to meet standards or certain requirements, technical requirements. These tend to focus on difficulties with meeting the standards for septic systems, geological hazards, fire safety requirements, a little bit of roads and access, and some in zoning. And so they kind of need special attention as they're going through this pre-clearance process in order to get out of it and get to the next phase of permitting. Next slide, please. We thought it would be helpful to focus in a little bit on the numbers here. So as a lot of you probably know, we had about 86,000 acres that burned, about 1,500 structures that were destroyed, multiple bridges and a lot of infrastructure too were destroyed. Of the 1,500 structures, we had about 911 homes that were permitted and unpermitted. And these were located on 697 parcels. Since fire, 254 parcels have sold and several are on the market now. 150
Welcome. Hey, Heidi.
have been rebuilt.
Hey, Heidi. You're welcome.
Mostly
Hey.
these are original property owners. 144 are currently in construction, and then we have 95 parcels that are trying to move forward and are in that CNC status. And one thing I will say is that because there were multiple structures that were on a certain number of parcels, we're really trying to focus in on the 697 parcels, not worry so much about 911 homes, but making sure those parcels can at
Wow.
least get a home back. And with that, I think I'm turning it over to Al and Pete. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chair Hernandez and members of the board. Al Zelinka with Baker Tilly, joined here with Pete Gonda. So since we left here in June, we've spent a lot of time with the county team assembling the universe of data. It was a very heavy lift, and we're still getting our arms around all the data. We spent time focusing in on the CNC status that Stephanie just talked about so that we could better understand some of the root causes and some of the barriers to rebuilding for the owners of the 697 parcels, CZU area. We also engaged stakeholders, the long-term recovery group. They have been incredibly helpful and collaborative with this effort. And we touched, we had many conversations, three dedicated sessions, but many more side conversations as well with all the members of the county team. Geology is not, geotech is not listed here. It should be, so should others. But we had a very collaborative journey with every single touch point in the county organization. Slide, please. So some of the takeaway, whoops, maybe one, it's okay. Some of the takeaways, on all the stakeholders, both county team and external stakeholders, all mindful of the challenges of rebuilding and all saying there's more that we can do to facilitate CZU rebuilds and plan better for future disasters. We had many aha moments, one of which were something that seemed so simple as the definition of what in-kind means. It means different things to different departments as codified. And that would create a lot of tangles and issues for the permit, the folks, the applicants trying to get their permits and get through the CNC process. So the county team really embraced the notion of having this as be a very important part of creating a pathway is to create consistency, standardization amongst terms like in-kind to the degree possible and other definitions so that everyone is on the same page, which will make it better for applicants. Additionally, the incredible lift to bring together the universe of data, we still need to do more analysis of that and to better understand the impacts of the CNC status. The next slide, please. Lastly, what we've learned is about 1/3 of the property owners, we don't have an exact number yet, still combing through all the data, have not engaged for a range of purposes. Everything ranging from there's individuals who have reconstructed without permits. There are individuals who can't move forward or having difficulty move forward because of financial or insurance reasons. Some, the emotional and trauma of what occurred and the loss of their homes and their dwellings is just too much for them to revisit and to go through the rebuilding process. Other tied in with that is just a lack of desire. And to some, it was a second home or vacation home and they just don't want to rebuild at this time, but we're trying to get our arms around that. The last two observations are an emphasis on ongoing training for county staff to be trauma informed so that whatever the occurrence is in the future, that county staff who are trying to, their darndest to be supportive of the community they serve, that they're always top of mind with the best trauma-informed practices. And then lastly, there was an observation that some of the external members that we engaged with conveyed that the county process was initially really, really helpful, but as time went on, it became less so. And so all of us, the county team included, really took to heart these themes and observations.
Thank you, Al. Honorable Chair, board members, Pete Gonda, Senior Manager with Baker Tilly. It's a pleasure and a privilege to be engaging with you on this important work. I'm going to take us through 7 recommendations before handing it off to Stephanie Hansen and Dave Reeve to wrap us up. So as Al just identified, what we look for in our engagements really are the common themes. What are we hearing commonly across stakeholder groups? And that's augmented by our own observations and experience with best practices. So they really feed directly into the recommendations. And as Al alluded to, there was a strong sense among the stakeholder groups that there are absolutely things that can be addressed now for permit throughput for these CNC parcels, but also a very strong sense that county has to start planning now for future disasters that are going to occur. So we've got 7 basic recommendations to get throughput now and followed by a longer term effort. Next. Our first recommendation really centers on conducting direct engagement with property owners. The CNC folks and the no status parcels, we believe, as does the stakeholder groups, that there's definitely opportunities there, as well as constraints to moving forward. So direct engagement and really understanding, augmented by this data that we've been compiling with the county, we think can get some throughput. Our second recommendation in really sort of coming back to what happened during the immediate and subsequent aftermath of the fire is looking at these CNC impacted parcels from a rebuilding supportive
What
lens
agenda number are they
to
on?
address these potential inconsistencies that Al
believe
touched
it's-
on,
I
the
think
in-kind
it's
definitions
15,
between
But I'm
planning and
not really
zoning,
sure because they didn't really announce.
environmental health, environmental planning, et cetera. There's some square footage allowance discrepancies between the sewage disposal ordinance and the rebuild directive. And there's misalignment on permit expiration dates when multiple divisions are issuing permits for a single project. So again, re-looking at this stuff in the near term, we think could greatly help with throughput. Recommendation 3 involves maintaining an ongoing dialogue with owners, just providing updates. I think as Al mentioned in one of our observations, it's this sense among the community that there was this effort up front to really get folks back into their homes, and there's a sense that has diminished over time. So maintaining ongoing dialogue is important. And recommendation 4 is for those folks who wish to move forward with rebuilding to implement an appointment-based review process with all county review disciplines present to coordinate and expedite pre-clearance processing for the CNC parcels. And this should also include an opportunity for the property owner to invite long-term recovery group participation. Recommendation 5 involves continuing to analyze and cleanse the data set to connect those opportunity throughput through database decision making. One of the things we discussed is whether or not the board should consider broadening the rebuild directive to cover successor owners of CZU impacted properties. We realize that that's a longer and larger discussion, but it's something that was brought forward. And then number 7, provide that training and ongoing resources to elected leaders to support this enduring sense of trauma-informed customer service training under a rubric, right? And that would include secondary trauma support for the folks who are helping those thusly impacted by the disaster. I'd like to invite Stephanie Hansen to provide some comments on the first set of recommendations.
Great, thank you, Pete and Al. We just wanted to say that CDI management has reviewed these near-term program recommendations, including outreach to the property owners and our CNC status folks, and really promoting a collaborative approach between divisions, facilitated by dedicated appointments for CZU survivors. Supporting the rebuild program remains one of our top priorities for the department, and we're committed to exploring those solutions to accomplish the work program. To address the long-term emergency planning efforts, I'm going to hand it off to Dave Reed, Director of OR3. Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon, board. So as part of this process, I was originally hired, for those of you that weren't here, I was originally hired as the recovery and resilience analyst in January of 2021. So really been a part of the recovery journey with CDI since the beginning. So it was helpful for me to participate in the process, but also in my new role as the director of OR3 to think longer term and how do we take this experience in this deeper dive look for the CZU recovery, but also 2023. So before this work started, we have a consultant on board that we're working with to start to develop a recovery plan. So an all hazards recovery plan to really outline some of the things we did well in CZU and to have that stuff documented and then to identify the places where we are learning forward. And so some of the things that are listed on this slide are things in that learning forward category where we did things as part of CZU that we thought at the time were the best opportunity to give benefit to recovery. Things like, I'll give an example of the Atkins study. So we secured funding through the Community Foundation to perform that analysis because we recognized that in the absence of that analysis, every property owner was going to have to do a debris flow hazard analysis. So we were trying to streamline that process. In learning through that process, that specific post-wildfire debris flow hazard has been abated. There is still and will always be a hazard to debris flow. But we want to think about things like that when we take actions in the heat of recovery. What are both the long-term and near-term impacts of that? So this lists a number of things that OR3 will be working very closely with CDI in the development of that recovery plan. So our hope is to have that recovery plan developed in the next 6 to 9 months so that we have that framework set forth for future disasters so that we're better positioned to stand up that recovery branch during a major disaster like CZU. I'll leave it at that and hand it back to you, Elizabeth.
That is our update for today. I am certain you all have thoughts and comments and questions about the material shared. And before we get to that, I just, as one of the steering committee leads for Streamlined Santa Cruz County, just in general, since we spoke of this in the end of June, we've really built the foundation for this work program. Every one of these projects now has what we are calling a micro charter that really sets forth what is the problem we're trying to address.
Yeah, I
What's the
can't figure out
proposed
if they're on
solution?
14 or 15.
What does success look like? What are key activities? What are the teams that need to be involved? And then we have timelines. And we all know in project management, things
They've been
change
bouncing
over time,
around,
but it's a system of accountability to keep things moving forward. And quite frankly, progress reports such as this is part of that accountability structure. As I mentioned, some of the projects we don't have big news to share, but it's important that we can come forward and let you know how things are going. One of the things I just want to highlight from the memo is we do articulate in there that we are identifying bodies of work embedded in this work plan that are not currently funded. So we do expect to be coming forward to the board in early 2026 with what are the implications of that, working within the CEO office, how can we recommend resources and provide those options to all of you. So I wanted to provide that broadest overview of the work program. And again, we are ready to take any and all questions. And then we have our recommended action slide, but I'm sure y'all would like to have public comment and ask questions before we get to this.
Thank you. Before we bring you to the board, we want to see if there's anybody in the public who'd like to address us on this item. Please come, please go to the back and.
Thank you.
And you have 2 minutes for public comment.
Thank you. My name is Sally Lucier, and it's now been 1,888 days, more than 5 years, since my family last slept in our beds after losing our homes in the CZU fire on August 20th, 2020. Since May of this year, we have met 18 times in person with the building department trying to move our rebuild forward. There is no master schedule. There doesn't seem to be adherence to the deadlines the department itself imposes. Every step requires us to send reminder emails and appear in person just to keep the process moving. Even within the building department, individual reviewers don't seem to be communicating with each other. The intake technicians are clearly overworked, burdened by repetitive manual data entry for every submittal and every round of review comments. Outside reviewers, particularly four-leaf, often appear unaware that what they're reviewing are CZU fire rebuilds. My home is in Brookdale, which is a rural community, and we're 12 miles from the nearest urban area. To fix this, the building department must show that it can be a partner in solutions. The county should limit the number of review cycles to 1 or 2 with conditional red line approvals to allow progress while corrections are made. Finally, much of the delay comes from review comments related to boilerplate language. We're asking for a process that works for accountability, communication, and the chance to finally rebuild the homes and live in them that we lost 5 years ago. Thank you.
My name is Catherine Wilson. I lived in Boulder Creek for 33 years. I'm 81 years old. I lost my residence and an income property on Boulder Brook Drive in Boulder Creek in the fire. And I had a contract with Homebound to rebuild it for the money I got for the 2 houses. I was able to rebuild 1. But when the Atkins report came out, the soils engineers were so scared of liability that they added $300,000 to my build for mitigation, which I could not do. So I, fortunately, the Recover California program came along. I applied to it. Took a year to get through that application process, but I received a grant of $257,000. That's free money, that's taxpayer California money. And I signed a contract on January 2nd of this year, and they still don't have a permit 10 months later. It's not a transparent process. They have finally decided they're going to call us every 30 days with updates, but they're, the update's the same thing. We're finalizing the permit, we're finalizing the permit, we're finalizing the permit. So I don't know where it's hung up. I have no access to that information. And in fact, they don't really want us there. They want us to just, I'm not even allowed on the property while they're building. So that's, if the state of California cannot rebuild a house in Santa Cruz County, I don't know how anybody can. In the meantime, I was on my own property in a trailer for a year and a half, and I'm a lung cancer patient. So the smoke did a number on my lungs. I had blood clots after that. I had multiple health challenges. I finally got back on my property in a trailer, but I couldn't get PG&E, so I couldn't run a dehumidifier. So the trailer got mold, and I got sick from the mold, and I had to get out. So I'm now renting a room again. I'm running through my savings at a great rate. I just don't have time for this, and every night I ask my mother to come and take me.
Thank you. Anyone else before we go online? Okay.
Okay, my name's Mary Simon. I was fortunate that I was able to rebuild, so I'm going to focus on some of the things that helped me. I was fortunate that Four Leaf really helped me. I had Jasmine and Madeline, and I found out you can ask as many questions as you want. Also, David Horwitz was there earlier. He helped too. And even the permit checker, Miguel Valencia, he was very helpful, although he couldn't take my AOL emails. So you need somebody there so you can ask questions and tell you that keep going and you can do this. So because I've never built a house, I want to say that it would be nice to have more flow charts, like pre-clearance had some flow charts. So the permit process, if we could see what we need to do. And then I read a book called What Your Contractor Won't Tell You, which was very helpful. That could be some kind of classes that you have. And then I had a retired contractor. This was my biggest help, who broke down all the expenses so I could see if I had enough money. And if you could let people know what they need to do so it's not a big unknown and causing
Yeah, I felt
anxiety,
bad for those,
then,
especially that
I mean, I
81-year-old
just hope you
lady.
can do that kind of information thing so that a contractor could help. And then if you can find somebody that can mentor people through this, because everybody processes trauma at a different rate. Some people can do it right away. Some people take longer. So we still need you the whole 10 years. Okay, thanks.
Good afternoon. My name is Tanya Schweitzer. I'm the Executive Director of the Long-Term Recovery Group. I think it's important to remember that no one that lost their homes, including myself, asked to build a home. It's very different clients that come to the planning department because they want to build, right? They're planning this out. They have an architect, they have a dream. Then coming in, if you lost your home and you have to, that's two very different. And that's why this trauma-informed care is really, really important. 2 points that I want to make is about the geological hazard modeling that is required. So we do have the Atkins report, right? It is created. There's a scientific consensus that after 3 years after a wildfire, that reverts back to the pre-existing levels. The problem is that many of these homes were built before modeling was required. And so my request is that we look at the possibility of reducing that to what, sort of the scientific consensus would be. How much is that reduced after 3 years? And could we get an engineer? Could we find some funding to pay for an engineer to do that type of modeling instead of going in on every single property? The other one is related to the environmental health, septic systems. Steve Holman is not here today. He's been really instrumental in this process with Baker Tilly. He is an environmental he used to work in environmental health for years and was able to reverse over 50 cases where it was required to install enhanced septic systems because there was an error made. And so my request there is that really there's a specific review of the cases in CNC, conditionally not cleared, that is due to environmental health, to see if those errors expand beyond Steve Holman's reach, to make sure we can catch those and help them. Thank you so much.
If that's it, was there anybody online?
I'm seeing no speakers online, Chair.
Okay, we'll bring it back to the board for any comments, questions. Supervisor Koenig?
Thank you very much. Thanks for the report to staff and our consultants. I would say that just the presentation here today definitely answered my #1 question, because the agenda memo itself did not really show a whole lot of attention to data. There was a few bullet points in there, but a lot more of that is provided in the additional graphs that were discussed here today and that are now available on the website. So I appreciate that. I would say that it feels a little bit scattered still. I mean, we've gotten all the data and that's good, but just even the way that we're talking about these data points and looking at progress, I'm not really seeing like the focus that tells me that we're sort of driving an iterative process here. I mean, even to some extent, the fact that we have 240 goals, I mean, individual goals, that's great that we've itemized it to that fine a point. But at the same time, it's sort of like, well, what's the most important? I mean, it's nice to see some evidence of the efforts working in the data, right? Going from 62% of applications reviewed on time back in March of 25, which I think was kind of the first definitive action on this, up to 88% reviewed on time today. That's great. That's definitely measurable and a success. And then we've also sort of seen some kind of, slight reduction in the median review days from around 80 down to 74. That's also great. The question then becomes for me, well, how do we unlock the next 10%? Or, how do we get, there's clearly continuous areas for improvement here. What's the next major hurdle or change that we can make in order to continue driving this down? And, ideally not just single digits, but unlock a, 10%, 15% improvement. I guess a question maybe for our consultants or any of the team that's working on this.
Thank you. And thank you for understanding. We are definitely still, this may not be the best word, but immature in utilizing these scorecards and tying them to the improvement efforts.
burping.
And I think that your request to sort of understand the focus and how the work on the ground is or is not impacting these metrics is a fair one. And one that we need to be working within the project, which I know planning's, management team is working with as they review the data internally as well. But I think it's a fair observation and a place where we will need to continue to focus and grow. One of the elements that we know is going to be important in getting to that next 10% of improvement or greater is a focus on our process mapping and understanding where there are opportunities to potentially reduce what we would call touch time. How long something is, someone's spending with it, and also cycle time, where it's just sitting waiting for the next step. And I am very proud of how these teams are moving forward. And I also need to acknowledge that they all have day jobs too. So this is, they are both doing the work of review and trying to review the processes that we're doing. So I'm hopeful that in the next 4 to 6 months, we will see more of the tangible improvements start impacting data. But this is the growing moments of these kinds of projects. The other part of
Is it lagging on screen?
I think we all know is a big piece here that we're all impatient for it to happen is the major overhaul of the code. And we're not focusing on that today, but we're happy to talk about more some of the thinking there, because it is a multi-year process to understand what it's going to take, Stephanie's here, I don't want to put her on the spot, but that is when we really try and get to addressing the complexity that our applicants face in navigating applications within the county. We know there's a fair amount that is state building code, but we also know we have local regulation that we need to look at. So we appreciate you guys continuing to nudge us forward and create these opportunities for us to talk about the work that we've done, but also recognize it will take, some of the largest wins are very heavy lifts, and it will take time to get there. I don't know if you guys want to add anything.
I would just add, Supervisor Koenig, that in addition to the process mapping and the county code update is the work on standardizing policies and procedures so that plan review occurs in a very consistent basis. Training is always an important thing because constantly you either have new staff coming on board or you have new regulations coming down from the state or what have you. Just making sure everybody is same page with the code provisions, the policies and procedures, and as Lisa said, you know, in our experience, that last 10% requires a lot of changes to structural pieces, so like code and processes. What Pete and I have gathered,
Double check if the mic's on.
the county team is definitely on board with putting in the effort to and adding the knowledge of experience to increase that 10%.
I don't even know why it's
Okay,
lagging.
I mean, so is there, I guess from your perspective as consultants, is there anything that we could be doing or should be doing or that's worked in other jurisdictions that not currently on our roadmap?
Well, I think what's the ongoing integration of technology and improving that technology is going to be super helpful. And the making of the data transparent for the community will be and connecting it also between departments is going to be super helpful, because right now I think a couple departments are siloed in their data. And so getting that integrated and linked is going to be super helpful. And even like as we were combing through the data, for instance, how anything is item is characterized varies based on who's putting in the data. And to standardize that helps everyone, including applicants, be at an even playing field of understanding. So I think integrating technology and improving the practices of using that technology is going to be super helpful. We've also seen a lot of efficiencies occur in the pre-application realm, and this team is dedicated on continually improving in the pre-application realm. Because as just like in any
Get the mic, please.
I'm sorry, in any part of our lives, the more you can understand what you're getting yourself into, the more efficient the process is. And so that pre-application is something that the county team is committed to improving and continually improving. So,
Man, we still got.
Yeah, there's a couple things there. I mean, as far as the pre-app realm, I think it's actually one data point that I'm not seeing recorded right now, which maybe be number of applications that are submitted complete, right? Because I think that is a way to measure our communication of standards and process to applicants. And so as that goes up, it means that we've done a better job and are reducing problems down the road. So that might be something to measure going forward. The other thing is the data. It's great that we have the data. That's an excellent step. I think it could be communicated to the public a little bit more. I mean, particularly some of the total days it takes to process an application. That's really useful information to have as far as setting expectations for applicants, so that they just know what to expect in the process. And the data is not really being presented in I mean, yes, it's publicly available, but it's on the about section. Like I was like, wait, is it on the site? Did it move? When I went to look for this, it's not under the planning tab, it wasn't really under the permit center tab. You have to go through about, and it's sort of awkward there. I think we need to think about how we provide some of these metrics to the public in a way that they're actionable, or at least help communicate the process. As far as the visions working together, and I want to appreciate that our environmental health director is here for this presentation as well. I mean, it's as has been has been said. This is not just building, right? It's public works, building, zoning, environmental planning, environmental health, fire. There's a lot of different divisions involved in this. And actually, that's my other question, is looking at this other chart, number of reviews in queue for each agency. It looks like Public Works has the biggest backlog. They're at like 668 reviews in queue. Everyone else is down in the like 300s or 200s. I mean, is there a bottleneck in Public Works that we need to address?
Unfortunately, we don't have our Public Works team present today. But this is something we are talking about. How do we ensure all county divisions that are involved in the review process are part of this work to standardize processes, that it's not just a single strand within the various strands that are involved in review. So that is certainly on the team's mind, that this needs to cover all components of county review. So that's where that data is helpful. I mean, just the fact that you can call out that number and say, what's going on here? So those are the kinds of questions that the teams are asking. And is there a way, or do we have the right people at the table to be figuring this out? Do we have the right components of these various value streams, these various processes identified in terms of process mapping, so everyone does have the same understanding of how it works? So that is exactly what is
I hate how their
is
lips are not
incredibly
moving.
helpful about even
Me
not
too.
necessarily ideal data, is it gives you that basis to ask those questions. And I can say that the teams are asking those questions and trying to figure out if we have the right people in the right conversations at the right time. And I do want to just really appreciate environmental health. Andy and Olga have joined the team and really tried. We're really working on integrating environmental health with the UPC work in particular, and we're continuing to expand that reach. And I want to just take a little bit of responsibility around, we do have work to do, working with our fire partners, getting sort of our non-county reviewers into conversation. And that is just a body of work that I have not been able to spend the time I want to spend on, just in getting our sort of internal house up and running in terms of the work plan. But that is definitely there, and we have every intention of picking that up.
Okay, thanks. I want to speak a little bit to resources. I think this board has expressed that we're willing to spend resources to break through bottlenecks, right? I mean, we approved additional 2 plan techs in this year's budget. They haven't been hired because there's concern. I mean, you can see it in the data that the number of applications are going down. But nevertheless, I think it expresses that we want to break through bottlenecks. We want to provide resources strategically in a way that improves this process. We've also expressed interest in, technology tools, whether that's AI or something else. So, if there's opportunities that we can get through with a little extra resources, I think we want to know about those. The other is just in general, I want to caution against the waterfall approach. Like we have to do this all at once, like that we need the 2-year complete code overhaul. Like we just get the next 3 code changes that'll get us a 5% improvement rather than spending 2 to 5 years trying to get the 20% improvement. Like we need to take an iterative approach to this stuff. And I mean, even as far as the software improvements are concerned, it's like I keep hearing, we need like just one overhaul, beautiful system. And then when we just get that in place, everything will be perfect. Yeah, maybe if we can get it done in 10 years, and we have enough money, even, there's a description of, we got to hire another consultant. And we got to drive this forward in an iterative way in the next best win. And I think that we're willing as a board to provide resources to help make that happen. Just generally encouraging that approach. Just 2 more quick questions.
Why is it doing that?
Who have I see we have
I don't
survey
know.
data for folks who have come in for
It's
consultation.
like,
Are
do
folks who
you,
actually
hold on, let me
receive
try.
permits now getting surveys? Like they get to the end of the process? Seeing heads nod.
Brian, if you want to go to the mic, you could go ahead and speak to that, or Julie.
Yes, we are having surveys submitted in 2 different ways and summaries of
Oh, it's
those
so
results.
annoying.
Do you want to back out and go back in?
I'm gonna go to the Zoom.
Okay, right.
Okay.
Building.
We didn't want to
So
take
there-
you through.
gotcha.
Oh, you're in the
every
actual
report card,
link.
but there are multiple.
Yeah,
there,
because
and
the
there's
Zoom, like anytime the somebody testifies, you can't see them,
Oh, yeah.
and so it's like whatever.
Because it's not doing it in the Zoom.
I guess I'm just gonna keep it on the Zoom, and I mean we'll just have to deal with it that way. It's better than hearing that shit.
That sounds like aliens trying to come through.
Yeah,
I'm ready for my ride if you want to pick me up.
I know that's right. What? Okay. What the hell, dude?
Want me to send you the Zoom link?
I got it. It's just making me put in this shit. It's not working. Okay.
Oh, Heidi, it was making like this weird, like interference type noise.
Supervisor Koenig, the next stakeholder advisory group meeting is November 5th. Agenda's
Now the
coming in
lips match
tomorrow,
up to the voice.
Thank God.
There's your big old toe.
Oh my God. Shit. Hold on. Hold on.
It's been a day. It's been.
I know that's right.
What's it been, like 6 hours?
Oh God, I don't even know, man. I just sat there and closed that son of a gun. I'm like,
didn't you?
and I'm also like trying to like do English, like look
Homework?
at, yeah. So it's like I'm like doing 20 things at one time. Okay, here we go. Hold on. Here we go.
And we ain't even done for the day.
I know.
Start off by thanking
There we go.
those members of the public who came today
There
to
we
speak.
go.
Your lived experience of navigating the permitting process and the recovery process is exactly what we need to be hearing as we advise and recommend policies for improvement. So please keep coming and please keep participating in the process. I also really just want to thank the team at the CEO's office, CDI, OR3, Baker Tilly, who've been working on proposing these improvements and really diving into the data. As you recall, it was, my office's recommendation that we do add a CZ recovery element to the Streamline Santa Cruz work. And what I wanted was this concept of an after action report, which is what you're bringing to us today. I wanted to know, where do we stand? What do the numbers tell us? What can we do better by the people who are currently stuck? And what can we do better for the future, for the next disaster that's coming? And that's what you brought to us today. And so I'm really grateful for that, and kind of want to talk a little bit more about that, but thank you for getting us where we are today and acknowledging we still have a lot more work to do. I think it's really helpful to break down the numbers of the rebuilds, right? To know that of the 697 impacted parcels, we've had, let's see, I took a photo of it. Of that slide, we've had 158 dwellings that have been rebuilt. That's a success. That's something to celebrate. And another 144 that are in construction. So that's great. And that's that many homes and families who are in progress to get home. And that's what we want to see. But what I'm most concerned about are the 95 parcels that are now in, the CNC status. And I see that in the recommendations, you have some policy recommendations and some ideas about where to move going forward. One of my questions is, when do you anticipate having sort of policy changes that would come before the board for us to deliberate on and approve to help streamline the rebuild? Is the communication and the engagement actions that you're taking now, will that lead to those policy improvements? Or are you hoping that, our offices independently sort of speak to our stakeholders and come forward with recommendations?
I'm going to take a first shot at this, but also invite Stephanie, well, the whole team to respond. In the memo, in our presentation today, we've articulated items that we think we can make active progress on in the next, again, 90 to 120 days. I will have to rely on staff to address where are those things that are within staff's discretion versus where are those things where, as we further understand what that looks like, that they are items we would need to bring back to the board. This whole question of in kind is one of those items. So I guess I want to speak to it that way. We're navigating that. Where is it within administrative discretion versus where is it a policy that needs to be rationalized across different regulatory frameworks? I'm eye to eye with Stephanie, and I think she has something to say here.
Thank you, Lisa. It occurs to me in making this presentation today that it's really difficult to adequately characterize the amount of work that's going on. So we've done our best here to report, but it's a daily look at where can we make improvements and what could, this is a problem and that can be fixed. And our engineering group is still coming up to speed, and we need to make sure that Public Works is adequately staffed. So we're looking at those things absolutely daily. And one of the things that's going on are internal meetings to start to feed the policy and code changes, both in the overall larger comprehensive project amendment and in the annual updates. And as we're working with environmental health and environmental planning and DPW, we're starting to see, well, maybe we need a third bucket, right? Maybe there's those things that we can do kind of quickly and easily and get it in, but the annual amendments are not meant to have a big environmental process, right? They're the quick things that we can get done. The annual code, the comprehensive code update is talking about big changes. So we may need something in between to address some of those things, but I think you can see that there's been a priority here on the CZU rebuild project, and our intent working with the team in Baker Tilly is to really start to move those improvements forward. So I hope we'll have a more in-depth and positive report for you when we come back next time.
Thank you. And so I think what I'm hearing is that there's continuous improvement happening all the time. There's sort of regular reoccurring activities that may help with some of the policy improvements. And there may be sort of off-cycle recommendations that come from this report that is something we may be seeing in the future. In the recommendations, it's shared that folks who are in the CMC status, who are stuck, who need help navigating the process, that they'll be offered support, regular meetings. Can one of you elaborate on what that might look like for them, what they can expect if their parcel is impacted?
Yes.
To you.
Sorry, I'm stepping in a little bit at a turn, so bear with me. But I think the concept is that we really try to connect with folks and be more proactive in an effort to really find out what's going on with them. If their issues are more financial than anything, then that's really good for us to know. I think what I kind of keyed in on in looking at these tasks is sort of, doing that proactive outreach and then having that dedicated time for them to come in. That's really just for them, depending on what their situation is, and trying to kind of see what we can do to really work through where they're tangled up.
Right. And I think, what I've learned in speaking to constituents is that, on one hand, no case is currently open, right? No rebuild that's stuck is like another, right? Each circumstance at this point is very individualized, because if it was easy, it'd already be rebuilt, right? That said, there are some root causes, as Baker Tilly alluded to, that are that could cross multiple parcels, that we're hoping might be addressed through this really individualized approach for the CZ rebuilds. One question, one of the speakers talked about some interpretation around septic systems, and that the work that Steve Homan was doing helped to clarify or correct some issues related to septic. Is it your anticipation that through these individualized meetings, that type of issue might be flagged and resolved because they're getting individualized attention with various departments in a single meeting?
Yes, I mean, I think you put, your finger on what's really important about the appointment structure proposal that's put forward, is the idea that it will be cross-disciplinary. So you're having our folks who are coming in, that they get to meet with all disciplines in one meeting. So I think that is a really important component of that recommendation. I want to talk with the team more about what we heard today around, Steve Holman being able to change the trajectory on 50 different rebuilds. What do we learn from that? I don't have an answer to that question today, but I think it's a good one for us to ask and talk with environmental health team about the learning that may be there. But I appreciate also just that reminder that as these appointments, all these things are unique and different, there are still common themes across them, and how do we work to identify those and take it from, an individual exceptional situation to, wait, what is this saying about our system overall? And that's just a conversation that, I'm encouraged that the UPC team is engaging in right now, but then just making sure that learning mindset is encouraged and practiced all the time. And I think when you guys ask these questions of us in this room today, I mean, when I go back to the team, I'm going to say, hey, we need to have better answers. What can we prioritize that will have a higher impact? Let's get back to these questions, the 7 recommendations for the 90 to 120 days. What do we need to bring back to them versus what do we think we can work on today? And just have that next level of refined answer for you all. So I appreciate the questions very much.
The other thing I would add that I think is of value with those meetings and the opportunity to have everybody in the room is we can't necessarily compel a property owner to include the long-term recovery group, but we really want to try and connect these CNCs and notice status folks with the long-term recovery group. Your board authorized OR3 to support financially the long-term recovery group because there are resources that they can bring to bear. They are building through the volunteer rebuild program homes for folks. And so if there's an opportunity for them to realize, okay, I might not be able to get exactly what I want, or the in-kind definition doesn't work, and that's why I'm stuck in CNC, but I can get a long-term recovery group to help us build a home that will get me through a front door. That might be an opportunity, right? We can't, as Assistant Director Hansen said, we can't solve the financial challenge for everybody. We'll try and remove barriers where we can, but the long-term recovery group may be able to bring additional resources that person or that property owner or that family might not be aware of.
Thank you. I appreciate those responses. My hope is that as we continue to get reports back and as you continue to do engagement with our constituents who are doing rebuilds, that we can better understand sort of the, I guess, segments of the population and what they're struggling with. If it's the financial issue, if it's the septic issue, you know, so then we can start chipping away at solutions. And also my hope is that they'll come back with policy recommendations if it's required. So, you know, I appreciate you'll look into the Rebuilders Directive, see if there's opportunities to widen the scope. You know, that's where the discussion up here. And so when the right time comes, we'd be happy to give you guidance or direction related to how we might approach geologic hazards down the road, years after the fire and things like that. On a final note, I appreciate the effort to build out an all hazard recovery model. I think, you know, what we learned, everybody could say, you know, clearly we had never faced a disaster at the scale of the CZU fire. We have now, there's a lot we've learned, and we can anticipate that future natural disasters may hit this community, and we want to be ready with the recovery model. So continue to put your effort into that. Thank you so much. And I look forward to continuing to support our department in reforming its policies and its approach to rebuilds, because that's what we're hearing from the community. So congratulations on the work so far, but let's keep forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Martinez and Supervisor Koenig, for your insightful questions. I only have one question, so I'll go ahead and ask it. And it's kind of piggybacking or elaborating on one of Supervisor Koenig's questions about, is there anything else that we're not doing that other counties are doing? But specifically, have we looked at sort of the places like Napa, Sonoma, Paradise, post-recovery to see what type of tools, systems, processes that use to rebuild?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, on some level, we've been working with, and we took models from Sonoma County from day one, right? The OR3 model has actually come from an OR2 model from Sonoma County. So there's lots of elements from these neighboring communities, both in the near-term recovery and long-term recovery aspects. The idiosyncrasies of our code and geologic hazards, it's harder to compare community to community when it comes to those elements. But certainly where we can, and some of the elements that'll be in the longer term all hazard plan, there are a set of code packages that you will adopt on the second day of a disaster. And that we want to have that package ready for you that we need. So there's certainly lessons learned from all of the disasters, Maui, LA, all of the communities that you mentioned as well.
Paradise certainly has the same geographic type of
They have a similar geography. Their geologic hazards are very different, right? They don't have the seismic and slope stability issues and debris flow issues that we do. But yes, there are lots of similarities in each of those communities that have experienced mega fires in particular.
Thank you. Supervisor Cummings?
I'll try to keep it short. First, just want to start by thanking everyone for their hard work on this, and I want to thank the CEO's office for extending the initial contract with Baker Tilly, because when we finally had a chance to meet with Baker Tilly, I think one of the things that came up was that a lot of the input from developers were for potentially developers who were looking at building kind of multifamily homes and larger buildings. And one of the concerns that I had is that it didn't seem like there had been as much engagement with people who were going through the fire rebuild process and people who were building kind of smaller structures, you know, whether it's remodels or porches or things like that. The people run into problems with the building apartments. I just want to express appreciation for that extension of that work to really incorporate the CZU fire victims, because that's, again, to Supervisor Martinez's point, these updates were made prior to her joining the board, but that was one of the people advocating as well, that we needed to really incorporate people who were going to build through the rebuild process. I guess one of the big questions I had was, I'm wondering if there can be a little bit of an elaboration on the differences of the quote unquote in-kind definitions between local and state law. It sounded like there were some conflicts there. I was wondering if somebody could help clarify what some of those conflicts were.
I guess I want to ask environmental health if they have comments on that at all. But we did recognize that in-kind is not the same for planning necessarily, especially in geological hazard areas. And we've also been kind of coordinating with environmental health on how we kind of mesh those definitions up. So I'll just ask Andrew if he wants to add anything.
Hey, yeah, good afternoon. Andrew Strader, Director of Environmental Health. If I understood your question, I don't know about a state definition necessarily for in-kind per se, but with regards to us versus what we came up with or what was come up with in response to the CZU fire, we have to keep in mind that septic systems didn't really burn in the fire. So they are still, for the most part, existing there. And so for us, generally speaking, in-kind means designing something that still fits what the septic system was designed to handle. The code that we have does allow for a small expansion, up to 500 square feet of additional space, allowance, one-time allowance. The problem was, depending on when the house was built, whether it had permits, modifications of various other things, it's very difficult to know what in-kind actually is. That's probably been the biggest challenge that was faced by people looking at in-kind, because there's different records, whether it's assessor's records, building records, or environmental health records that can often display dissimilar information about the same property because it's kind of morphed over time, and not all agencies were able to, have the latest data, so to speak.
Can I add a little bit
Sure.
up to that? So I do think it's an interesting conundrum to have original septic, assuming a certain size of a structure, and then what that structure that burned down being different than that original size. And so that's really what I think that's what Andy's trying to describe, that they thought it was X. Someone may have built with permits or without to Y. They think that is, they're just replacing Y and it's out of sync. So it's an interesting thing that I think staff needs to work through. What can we do? What can't we do? Is it a paper exercise, or is it really around septic capacity? Like, that question is, if you build at that size, is it going to be appropriate for the flow in that home? So this is where those conversations, we need to figure out what's, again, within staff discretion versus is not. And does that limitation, where does that limitation sit? Does it sit here locally, or does it sit somewhere? Is it embedded in some piece of larger state policy that that drives the entire system. That doesn't mean we can't go after that, but I think that's part of the conversation we're still trying to sort through. I just want to ask if Al or Pete have any perspective, given that they have seen this in other jurisdictions as well, if that's all right.
Thank you, Elisa. I think the dot that I'd like to connect here is in this review of the data. And what we didn't have was a complete set of data that had the assessor's parcel number, the owner's name, the street address, the type of CNC status, the comments that caused it to be in CNC status. So now we have that in a data file. Again, we continue to clean it, but we can look at it, associate a name to the parcel number. And
Jen.
This was an exercise that we went through with representatives from the long-term recovery group, was to look at the name on the paper.
I'm
and
here.
What the comments were.
What are you eating
So
on that
is it a
TikTok
question
video?
of,
To what?
as Elisa
What are
just
you eating on that
outlined,
TikTok
there
video?
was an X and a Y relative
Oh.
to the septic and the size of the rebuild. And
Apple
so we can
cinnamon
start to
crisp.
look at things like that now.
They look like
holistically and
noodles.
spatially
They're like little
to get at, are there quick wins out of this number
straws.
5? How many are in environmental health pre-clearance? How many are fire? How many are zoning and geo and so on?
Man, this
What has
was a
changed over
long
time,
hearing,
for
bro.
example, to debris
I know.
fields that might be
And then we
revisited now
got
5
the
years
other
on
one.
that might represent a quick win. Get somebody out of that CNC status. So
That one's in
that's
what,
the
2
next step
hours?
for us in the data
Yeah.
review that we'll be looking at with county.
There's one other thing I would add on that question about in-kind that I think is an opportunity that I'm happy to work with your offices on. So there, as was alluded to, there's a building history associated with so many of these properties that is different than what maybe the permitted or designed septic
I wonder
system
if they're even going to go over
and
that.
that disconnect
Like, I
between what
hadn't
you're
even
living
mentioned
in and what the
I
septic system
know.
was designed at is an educational opportunity and an emergency and disaster preparedness opportunity for your residents. So
I know people,
a lot of people
other
buy
people
into a
are
septic
waiting for
system
this.
home and they think all I
Yeah.
have to do is pump this septic
I don't
tank
want to
every
name no
2, 3, 4,
names.
5, 6 years, and that's it. They don't understand where the leach fields are. They don't understand how big the leach fields are. They don't understand what that system was originally designed for. So as Director Strader said, they're living in a 3-bedroom house and they think their septic system was designed for a 3-bedroom house. That may not be the case, but there's an education opportunity. There's a case for these residents proactively to understand if there is a disconnect and then to try and at least be aware of that moving forward. So I'm happy to work with your offices on that kind of education from a disaster recovery and response lens.
And I think it's also worth us thinking about how that intersects with the real estate community as well. I mean, I don't know how many of these, of the 254 lots that were sold, like, I don't know, and I'd be curious to know how many of those are actually buildable, because I know that there were some lots, for example, if the driveway didn't meet, CAL FIRE clearance, CAL FIRE is not going to sign off if they had geologic issues, what have you. And the fact that some of those lots are having issues, one, people can't build on them to begin with. And so then there's also a question of takings, but then 2, if they're being sold and there's issues on those lots, should they even be able to be sold for the purpose of residences when it's pretty clear that can't be built on? And I think that's something that we need to think about, how we can put guardrails up to safeguard people from being put into a situation where they're buying something that they actually can't build on. The other thing, because I just want to make some comments and then I'm going to wrap up, because I know we've got a lot more items to be heard.
Yeah, we do, buddy.
I will say that I think that there's a question around, how people who bought properties should be treated in this process. And I do think, consistent with what the board has said in the past, I don't think that, all of our efforts to address rebuilds should be focused in any way, shape, or form on people who are coming in and buying burnt properties. I think that the effort has really been focused around people who lost their homes and are trying to rebuild on properties where they lost their homes, that a lot of the efforts we're making around this rebuild effort is really focusing on getting people back in their homes who lost their homes, versus somebody who, maybe is from a different part of California, maybe they're even from the community, but they see an opportunity to buy a burnt property, they go in and buy it, and now they're saying, I need you to expedite me building my home. It's like, well, you if you had the means
I
to
ain't buying no
purchase
burnt ass
land,
property.
which you're pretty much buying outright, you're not getting a loan for it. We really want to focus on those people who are burdened by the fact that they lost their homes and getting them built first. So I think consistent with the way that we've kind of been prioritizing rebuilds in the past, like that should continue to be the priority. Is people who their houses burned down and they want to build something back and they're trying to get back in their homes. I do think that there's more also to this question of in kind, because my understanding, having spoke to some folks, is there's the, you have to rebuild on the same footprint, and that's considered
I'm glad we already
in-kind,
have some
in-kind rebuild. If you move off that
Huh?
footprint, that's no longer
I'm
considered
glad we
in-kind
already
rebuild.
I mean,
However, I think to
I
the
know, but
point
we got
around some of
other
these
folks
houses
that
that were
want to
built a
drop
very
in.
long time ago, it could be, you have a large enough property where if you were to build on the same footprint, you may be in a geologically
I felt
unstable
bad
area
for him
versus
having
if
to
you
just
move to somewhere else on your
wait.
property, you may be in a
This is
geologically stable area.
this might be
And
this
from my
is gonna
perspective,
be
that should
easy
be
edit
considered an
for us.
in-kind
Yeah.
rebuild, and especially if you're trying to improve the safety of the home by moving it off of part of your parcel that was geologically unstable to a part that's geologically stable. That would make a lot more, we shouldn't put people through an additional process just because of formality of needing to move a structure from one part of the parcel to the other. Additionally, if we're able to, split those into two homes, like rather than building one,
Yeah,
1,000 square
I
foot
made
home,
some
we can
ice
split into
coffee
two
earlier.
500 square foot homes or ADUs and put
I
them on the
hope the
same
other
parcel.
hearing don't last till like
Safer
11
area or
again.
within the
I
same,
hope not.
Parcel. I mean, it seems like we need to really be trying to figure out how we can think creatively about what an in-kind replacement means and how we can facilitate construction. I mean, it's clear that if somebody had 1,000 square foot home, they want to build a 2,000 square foot home with a pool. Like that's beyond the scope of what a replacement is. But I think we need to think creatively. And then finally, I do think that as we're moving through this process, I think we're getting, we're 5 years out now. We're getting to a point where we're really able to understand what has really helped us to get people to rebuild more quickly, what have been some of the barriers, and really starting to
Oh yeah, he
comprehensively
really
put
looked
that
at Mr.
together
T.
so that we can give that to our state representatives, especially if there are state laws that have made it difficult and challenging for people to rebuild. Because as we're seeing more and more fires, as we're seeing what happened in Altadena, and down in the Palisades, Malibu, and across the state, I mean, we're constantly seeing new state bills around housing getting passed. And what always comes up to me as a question is, are they actually making these decisions based on the experiences of communities that have experienced disasters in recent times? Because there's a lot of exemptions that folks are getting down in Southern California, and we didn't get those same exemptions here. I think by being able to tell that story to our state elected representatives, they can better understand, what's going to help benefit communities that have experienced a fire. What are the challenges and problems we're running into where there's opportunities for flexibility? So I'm just hoping that moving forward, we can help better tell the story of Santa Cruz. And I would say not just only to our state representatives, but to other communities that are similar to ours, because as more and more communities are getting impacted by disasters, being able to say, this is what happened to us and you should take this into consideration might be helpful for them as they're trying to rebuild as well. So just want to thank you all for all your hard work. Looking forward to continuing having these discussions, and I'll end my comments there.
Thank you, Supervisor Cummings. Supervisor DeSerpa.
Thank you. I'm not going to belabor anything that has been said here. This is a very long meeting. I know this is hard. Hearing the testimony from CZU survivors today hurt my heart a little bit, and I think it probably did for everybody else in this room too. So when we know better, we do better. I'd like somebody to bring them in, sit down with the whole team and see what the holdups are and see if we can remove the barriers. That at a minimum has got to be done. And then we'll let the rest of this improvement move forward. I'm very encouraged by some of the improvements that I'm already seeing and hearing about, and we still have a long way to go. So thank you very much.
So with that, if there's no follow-up questions, I'll look to my board to entertain the motion.
I'll move the recommended actions.
Second.
We have a motion from Supervisor Koenig and a second from Supervisor DeSerpa.
Supervisor Koenig.
Aye.
Martinez.
Aye.
DeSerpa.
Aye.
And Hernandez.
Aye. Motion passes. Is that unanimously with one person not here? That concludes our 1:30 agenda item. We'll now move back to item number, is it 12?
Woo!
Yes.
About damn time.
Next agenda item is number 12, consider approving the in-concept in ordinance, adding chapter 7.170 to the Santa Cruz County Code of prohibiting the sale or distribution of kratom and take all related actions.
Y'all better be ready.
I'll turn it over to Second District Supervisor Kimberly DeSerpa for the presentation.
Hello, everybody. I have a slide deck, I think, that needs to come up.
Chair, I believe we have an additional scheduled item
Yeah, I thought so.
at 1:30. I believe it's agenda item 15.
Jesus Christ.
Oh,
Man,
there's two scheduled items for,
Yeah, this
Oh,
is item
Lord.
15, a Santa Cruz like.
no, that one's not scheduled. That one is not scheduled, correct? Is it just 14?
It was 14, 14.
I think you have discretion to handle it the way you want to
Because
handle
we
it.
got 15, then we got 15.1, 15.2,
Right.
15.3.
He
Right.
did say
It's-
15.3.
I think I don't think you have to go through 14, 15, 15.1, 15.2 before circling back to number 12. We had a 1:30 set item. You just heard it. I think you have discretion as chair if you want to hear 12 next, or if you want to move to 15 next. It's up to you.
I think we can finish, fairly quick, how long is the presentation? Maybe not?
I'll make it speedy.
Okay. And we'll finish 12 and then come back to 15.
Okay, and, let's see.
What happened?
So I have, thank you.
That we're
for
not going to
pulling
be able
that
to
up.
see it because the
I
Zoom
also have
messes up.
an addiction doctor, Dr. Casey Grover, who practices down in Monterey and who is part of our regional Prescribed Safe coalition, at the ready to answer questions and help with this presentation. So hopefully he'll call in if he hasn't already. Felipe's not here, should it? Go ahead. So thanks, everybody, for listening today. I'm presenting to you for your consideration an ordinance adding chapter 7.170 to the Santa Cruz County Code, prohibiting the sale or distribution of kratom.
Oh.
So we're going to talk today a little bit about what it is and why I've proposed this. Next slide.
So she proposed it.
Kratom and kratom products are substances of abuse currently unregulated at all levels, federal, state, and at the county. They are not approved by the FDA for any medical use, and there's no quality control standards whatsoever. They're currently sold over the counter at stores like gas stations, tobacco shops or smoke shops, and convenience stores.
Can you hit the other buttons?
County and indeed all over the country. I just got back from a trip a couple of weeks
It
ago. where I
pops
was
it out
in,
to a new
the
window.
New Hampshire mountains, and there's all kinds of convenience stores in those areas with the big blinking signs say kratom sold here. Significant public health and safety risks include addiction, withdrawal, and overdose. Purpose today is and the purpose of this ordinance is really to try to deter the misuse and abuse by prohibiting sales and distribution in the unincorporated Santa Cruz County.
Want to just go on the other link? Yeah.
So what is kratom if you don't know?
I want to see what she's showing.
Nitrodina speciosa grows
Gotta love the middle toe.
mountains, and there's all kinds of convenience stores in
There we
those
go.
areas with the big blinking signs say kratom sold here. Significant public health and safety risks include addiction, withdrawal, and overdose. Purpose today is and the purpose of this ordinance is really to try to Just deter the misuse and abuse by prohibiting sales and distribution in the unincorporated Santa Cruz County. Next slide. So what is kratom if you don't know? Mitragyna speciosa grows in Southeast Asia related to the coffee plant, marketed everywhere. And you heard a lot of the comments today as a natural remedy for pain, anxiety, or opioid withdrawal. It's sold in stores as powders, capsules, liquids, and gummies. Again, in gas stations, readily available, tobacco, vape shops, and convenience stores. It's often referred to as gas station heroin due to its addictive potential. And in some cases, it is more potent than morphine. And this is in stores readily available across our county. Next slide. So who uses kratom? Average age 35, searching for mood, energy, pain relief, 50-50 male to female, high rates of anxiety, depression, pain, or polysubstance use. There's an estimated 15 million users of kratom in the United States, roughly 4.5% of the population, or maybe about 12,000 people in our county. The kratom industry is about 1.5 billion or more in this country. Next slide. So many of you know that I'm a medical social worker and spent most of my career in the hospital. I have seen many people, including
Look at this
youth,
fluid in
come
the
in
lungs.
overdosed on kratom, and in fact,
The
have
hell?
lost a couple of those patients. And I want to tell you, sitting across from those mothers who are heartbroken, and I have to tell them the next people to walk in the door are going to be the organ donation people, is a horrible thing to do. And that is why I'm introducing this, because I don't want any other family to go through that. Here's the adverse effects: dependence and addiction, elevated liver enzymes and liver injury, endocrine hypothyroidism and hypogonadism, kidney failure, abnormal heart rhythms, fluid in the lungs, confusion, seizures, cognitive impairments, and babies born to mothers using kratom will often develop opioid-like withdrawal symptoms or neonatal abstinence syndrome and need to be hospitalized in the intensive care. Next slide. Public health concerns. Again, unregulated potency. Some extracts are far stronger than natural leaf. That is true. But who knows? Because on all the packaging, it doesn't say what the potency is. It doesn't say what the milligrams are. You don't really know what you're getting. The active compound is 7-hydroxymitragynine, is more potent than morphine. Effects include dependency, withdrawal, I already said this, nausea, vomiting, hallucinations, psychosis, and overdose. ER and poison control centers report sharp increased kratom-related incidents. Next slide. So this is a visual for you to see. This is a store here on the Central Coast. I want you to just look here and see. This is marketing to children and youth in colors and in flavors that are
99% of that's freaking 708.
completely unregulated. Anybody could just walk in here and buy whatever they want off the shelf, including youth. Next slide. Kratom overdose can appear like an opioid overdose. Stimulant-like effects are agitation, fast heart rate, hallucinations, and seizures, and increased certainly when overdose was mixed with other substances. Next slide. In Santa Cruz County, this is just some extra information for you. In 2024, we had 4 deaths where mitragynine had either a direct or indirect correlation to the death. As you can see, a blunt force injury from a cliff fall, a drowning, and 2 overdose deaths. In 2025, in fact, I just heard about another overdose death that was attributed to mitragynine just yesterday. So that 7 deaths might be 8 now. 2 drownings, 2 motor vehicle accidents, 2 overdose deaths, and 1 natural event, but they had kratom in their system. Next slide. Lack of oversight. There's no FDA approval or labeling requirements, no age restrictions or dosage guidance, misleading marketing as a safe dietary supplement, and local agencies right now lack the authority to restrict sales. Next slide. So these are some of the other jurisdictions that have enacted bans: Newport Beach, San Diego, Oceanside, and Orange County. Next slide. Why is action needed? To protect residents, especially youth and vulnerable populations, from exposure. It closes public health and consumer safety gaps, reinforces the county's commitment to harm reduction, and empowers local enforcement and public health action. Our county spends a significant amount of money trying to get people off substances that are harming them and harming their lives and harming our communities. Why would we leave these types of substances on the shelf to continue to reinforce people's substance use, addiction, and dependence? It just makes no sense. Next slide. In summary, the ordinance prohibits the sale or distribution of kratom and kratom-containing products, applies to all the unincorporated county area, will be enforced by law enforcement and public health, and penalties will be.
Yeah, you're right, Laura.
Code violation. Next slide.
Orange County regulated.
Santa Cruz County remains committed to protecting families and youth from emerging substance risks, promoting public health and harm reduction, ensuring local policies prioritize safety over profit. The health and safety of our community always come first. Thank you. I think that's the last slide, isn't it? So I don't know if, do we have Dr. Casey Grover online? So I think Dr. Casey Grover will be rounding out the end of this presentation.
Hi there, can you hear me?
No.
It's insane.
Let's see, audio.
Is he there?
Yes, I am.
He's here, but Casey, we're having a really hard time hearing you. Is there any way that you can speak up or increase the volume on your device?
Talk into the mic. Mouth in the mic.
It's on his end, not ours.
I believe so.
He's trying to fix it.
So I believe he's trying to fix it. One moment.
I don't know if Dr. Hernandez, would you like to say a few words?
Oh, not me.
Until we can have Dr.
Sure.
Grover online. Thank you.
I think you can hear me. Good afternoon, Chair Hernandez, Board of Supervisors. I am Dr. Lisa Hernandez, Public Health Officer for the county. I have a few prepared comments. You've already heard a number of the things I'm going to mention, but it bears repeating. Kratom is often promoted as a natural and safe alternative, but its active ingredients, which we know now are 7-hydroxymethylguanine and methylguanine, act on the same brain receptors as opioids. So essentially, it's an opioid analog.
No, it ain't.
Just want to stop there and say that's a big part.
You're a
of
freaking doctor.
Why this is an important ordinance to pass. Because of those features, it can lead to dependence, addiction, and toxicity. And some of the negative health effects, Supervisor DeSerpa mentioned already: liver toxicity, seizures, hypertension, and in some cases death. And we heard this morning from a number of mothers who were able to call in about the loss of their sons, unfortunately, to this.
So why does that
compound.
override the positive
These
testimonies?
products are unregulated and often mislabeled and contain contaminants such as heavy metals and bacteria. And in fact, there was an outbreak several years ago of salmonella due to products with kratom products.
That was so long ago.
Furthermore, they're not approved by the FDA. There is no medical use approved at this point. And when taken without medical advice, it may be a higher risk, especially to individuals who are taking other substances, whether they're medications or supplements. Kratom is accessible in our community. There was a survey that was performed in 2019, so now 6 years ago, that showed that 62% of vape and smoke shops had Kratom for sale. And we expect that to have increased. It's also sold online and in health stores, and it is increasingly available to youth. So taking action now is something that can help prevent Kratom from becoming even more of a public health and substance use issue, especially in the setting of a community that is impacted by the opioid epidemic. So thank you for
I know that's right.
time. And
There's
I will
listeria going around
hand it
all
back
over the
to you,
place all the
Supervisor
time.
Grover.
Dr. Hernandez, I think we do have Dr. Grover online now.
Can you hear me?
Oh, yeah, we can hear you,
Right.
Casey. Thank you.
So my name is Casey Grover, lifelong resident of the Central Coast, and I'm currently in clinic in Monterey where I see patients with substance use disorders. And I take care of patients in Monterey, Santa Cruz, and San Benito County who use Kratom. And the vast majority of my patients say something to the effect of, if I had known what this stuff was, I never would have started it. And that goes to the point that Supervisor DeSerpa made. This is largely sold in smoke shops as a tonic of a way to feel better. I actually walked into a smoke shop near me and took some photos of how the product was marketed because it's very inaccurate, unfortunately. So one preparation of Kratom was advertised as being an all-in-one energizing life lifter, which sounds great. I mean, we all want to have more energy in the afternoon when we get tired. And unfortunately, as the Kratom industry has innovated to make it more potent, we are now seeing preparations of Kratom, which are really not Kratom in its traditional form, but are rather novel semi-synthetic opioids that probably need to be brought through the FDA as new pharmaceuticals. And for the consumer, unfortunately, you go into one of these stores, it's very, very poorly labeled, and people don't know what they're getting. So patients drive down from Santa Cruz to see me to get off of Kratom. I saw one of my patients from Santa Cruz County yesterday, and it's the same thing over and over again. If I had known what this stuff was, I never would have started it. And I think that's where a ban on the substance is most helpful, because if people have a history of addiction, they might come to Kratom for different reasons. But a person who's just trying to feel better and walks into a local smoke shop is so uninformed by the labeling that they end up dependent on it and facing withdrawal. And then they often need treatment with someone like myself.
Thank you, Dr. Grover. I don't know if anybody here on the board, while the doctor's online between patients, if anybody on the board has any questions for him, I think now would be a good time to ask.
Supervisor Koenig?
Yeah, sure. I mean, for Dr. Hernandez or for the doctor online, I'm just curious how many cases we've actually seen in Santa Cruz County, either in the emergency room or other. Do we have data about just how widespread the impacts of the substance are right now?
Dr. Grover, do you want to answer? If not, I will.
Go ahead. I don't have as many patients in Santa Cruz County as Monterey, but I do have patients that come down from Santa Cruz to see me. Go ahead.
So we do not have local data on the prevalence. What we've seen in national data shows that there's anywhere between a 0.08% to a 9% prevalence of people who've used Kratom in the last year. So it's a wide range, and we also know that it's underreported.
That's like minute.
Supervisor DeSerpa mentioned the 11 deaths that we've had in the last 2 years,
Yeah.
and that is our best local data, unfortunately.
Okay.
Monterey County Coroner's Office does not test for Kratom, so we don't know the number of deaths in Monterey County from Kratom.
Thank you. We heard a number of comments this morning during public comment about that Kratom had been a helpful substance in alleviating pain. Is there any clinical data that shows that it does have medicinal value?
Yeah.
So I'll take this one. So Kratom has been used for hundreds of years in Southeast Asia for people to chew the leaf and work in the heat. And the leaf is bitter and fibrous, and it has fairly low levels of what are called alkaloids, which are the active ingredient in the kratom that gives us the effects. And so it's been used in human history without issue. But the issue for me as a doctor, the industry has extracted some of the alkaloids from the kratom leaf and basically create synthetic opioid. These are called the
That's
7-hydroxymetrogynine or
708.
7-OH products. So that's essentially a novel pharmaceutical opioid. Many people come to kratom because they feel like it helps with their pain. It acts like an opioid. Of course it does. So some people can use it without issue, just like some people can drink a glass of wine without issue. But on the wine bottle, there is a warning, and it says exactly how much of whatever substance is in there in terms of the alcohol content. Kratom is very poorly labeled. And so I don't think we actually have any studies specifically looking at kind of how kratom could be used medicinally. I may be wrong on that, but we have a lot of studies looking on why people use it. And many people go to find it because they want to self-treat their pain and they don't like a traditional medical treatment setting.
All right. Is there some like percentage of total kratom alkaloids in a product that could be used to like differentiate between natural kratom and one of these novel synthetic opioids?
It depends on what legislation you're looking at. So sometimes regions will enact what's called a Kratom Consumer Protection Act or KCPA, and they usually specify that kratom that to be sold must contain less than a particular percentage of the 7-hydroxymetrogynine. And for context, 7-hydroxymetrogynine, because it is a novel synthetic opioid, has been recommended by the FDA to the DEA to be a controlled substance.
Yeah, I mean, I was just looking at the Orange County ordinance and
Yes. So the issue is that so the kratom leaf itself does not contain any 7-hydroxymetrogynine. When the leaf is dried, a small amount naturally occurs in the leaf. And that's where those percentages come from. So it's basically advocating for leaf kratom and trying to avoid the stronger versions.
That's what we want y'all to
the
do.
Orange County ordinance talks about 2% of total kratom alkaloids, sort of being a cap. Is that like something that would limit us to naturally occurring 7-OH?
I believe it's lower in the Newport Beach. I'll have to look. I don't know off the top of my head, regrettably. I'll have to look that up. But yes, basically the natural leaf itself contains a fairly low level of the 7-hydroxymetrogynine.
Okay, thank you.
That's what we said.
I was,
Well,
I still have a question. I was just looking at some of the AI stuff that brings up on kratom and talking about the overdoses. Says the majority of overdoses are through the synthetic version of 7-OH because it has up to 98% concentration on those, while the other ones has not just the 7-OH, but a more balanced and has other alkaloids that bring it down. Do we differentiate between the overdoses and deaths between synthetic and the natural leaf? Either in Santa Cruz County, Monterey County, or you're citing Orange County? I don't know.
Not working. There we go. Dr. Grover, I'll take this one. In terms of the deaths that we had so far in 24 and 25, I asked that question because I know that would be, I had that question. I know others did too. We cannot distinguish between, with the testing that we have, we can't distinguish between synthetic and natural kratom to say whether it was something that was due to the type of kratom people were using. So at this point, we don't know the difference. We did hear this morning from a mother who spoke about her son, and I've seen reports from Florida where the individuals were not, were taking the natural form and not taking any of the synthetic forms when they passed away.
Thank you. If there's no other questions, comments, I'm going to take it out to the public. I do want to remind Madam Clerk and all the public that if you've already spoken on this subject, you will no longer be able to speak on this item again. In the public.
How's it working now? There we go. Good afternoon, Chair Hernandez and other members of the board. My name is Dee Baldwin. I am a lieutenant with the Santa Cruz County Sheriff's Office, and I currently work in our community policing unit. As a representative of the Sheriff's Office, I'm here to share our perspective on the proposed ordinance prohibiting the sale and distribution of kratom products in the county. As noted in the meeting agenda packet, we've seen other jurisdictions across the nation that have been struggling with issue. In Florida, there was over 580 deaths with the indication that kratom was present. Although the data doesn't show specifically that was the source, it was still part of the overall case. Since 2024, as stated earlier, our county has seen 11 deaths where kratom was present in the coroner unit's toxicology reports. One of those cases from earlier this year showed no other substances in the blood during toxicology tests. That to me is a big indication of the concern that we're looking at. Our primary concern with this issue is the safety of our community. The well-being of our community members. We believe that taking a proactive stance can help protect vulnerable individuals from this product. We're committed to ensuring that our county remains a safe place, and we support the ordinance as we continue our steps towards that goal. Thank you.
Woo!
Is there anyone online? Can we review to make sure that they did already speak?
Yes, Chair, we do have speakers online. And in reviewing the list, I'm not seeing any speakers that had previously spoken, so it does look like these are all new speakers to the item. Marcel?
Do you know how many there is, by the way?
Yes, there's currently 11 individuals with their hand raised.
Yeah, we're going to bring it
Hello?
down to 1 minute for the public comment.
One moment, Marcel.
They're only giving them 1 minute?
Marcel, your microphone's now available. Please begin speaking.
Hi, my name is Marcel Morfin. I am a U.S. Army veteran, and I utilize kratom for my chronic pain. That actually, I sustained an injury from the Army, and I've had longstanding pain for nearly 20 years. I use it responsibly. I've been using it for about 8 years. Regulation really is the way to go. And I just really feel bad for people who live in your county who haven't had a chance to speak. I realize this is an introduction, but I just really think you guys need to go with regulation rather than banning. Someone like me, I use it 3 to 4 times a day. It has saved my life. And there are so many other people like that. People that won't be able to order it who are disabled and things of that nature, because if you ban sales, then they can't even get it through the mail. And so you guys really need to think about this and talk about it more.
Woo, Marcel.
Anthony, your microphone's now available.
Hi. Hi, I'm a lifelong California resident. I've used kratom for 6 years. I'm not here to defend 7-OH, but please don't punish responsible adults who use natural kratom leaf powder. It's a mild traditional plant that's been safely used for generations. I still struggle every day with anxiety, stress, and depression, but kratom is what gets me through it. It's the only thing that keeps me from falling back into alcoholism. Lumping lab-tested kratom leaf together with synthetic 7-OH is a scientific and moral mistake. Those synthetic capsules contain up to 1,000 times the alkaloid concentration of natural kratom powder. Even the federal government reached out a month ago, urging California to make that distinction clear. Texas chose a 7-OH limit over a blanket ban. Why can't we? The actions of our state public health department are authoritarian and are not making that distinction. How can we allow adults to legally buy alcohol and cigarettes, substances proven to kill, yet criminalize a natural plant that helps people live? Please do not force people like me back into despair and addiction. Thank you for your time and compassion.
Woo, Tony!
Maddie, your microphone is now available.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, 1 second. Okay, good afternoon. I'm a white-collar professional and a responsible kratom consumer, here to ask you to support regulation, not prohibition. Let's be clear, 7-OH is not kratom. It's a synthetic compound that many times stronger than the natural leaf. Real kratom from Mitragyna speciosa contains only trace natural levels, less than 1/100%. There have been no confirmed deaths from pure tested kratom, and the harm comes from contaminated or synthetic products. For many, kratom is a lifeline. My mother has severe rheumatoid arthritis and a fused spine. After years of agony, kratom has helped her walk again with less pain. And for me, living with multiple endocrine deficiencies from a pituitary tumor, kratom has been life-changing and restored my energy, focus, and quality of life when prescriptions failed, allowing me to thrive in my cybersecurity career. Please don't make people like us into criminals. Support the KCPA. Choose regulation, testing, and age limits, not fear, misinformation.
Woohoo, Maddie!
Jordan, your microphone's now available.
Hello, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. So, my name is Jordan. I just want to say that kratom is not an opioid based on its botanical origin, chemical structure, or law nationally or internationally. It's kind of easy. If you guys actually Google, has anyone ever died from kratom in Southeast Asia, which has been used for 1,000 years, going back to the Dayak tribe, you'll see it's zero. Unlike a lot of these people talking, I've actually been to the villages. I'm the truth about kratom, life-saving plant, or botanical menace. According to John Hopkins, kratom is 1,000 times safer than traditional opioids. If kratom were an opioid, it would be scheduled under the Controlled Substances Act. Studies have been done where mice were given 400 times the amount of kratom a person can reasonably consume and no deaths. Back in 2016, the DEA was going to schedule kratom, but due to the public backlash, they actually started to study kratom and they rescinded. It's the first substance in history. Also, there's been over 450 published studies on kratom, and also Dr. Brett Jawad, the former head of HHS, he stepped in and stopped the kratom ban. He said the only threat that kratom posed was if it were to be banned.
Go, Jordan!
Dylan, your microphone's now available.
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
All right, members of the board, thank you for your time. Because of some of the topics in this hearing, we've discussed both alcohol and kratom. I'd like to put the discussion into a little bit of perspective. According to the CDC, alcohol kills about 178,000 Americans every single year, nearly 500 people every day. It's involved in 4 out of 10 violent crimes, and it costs our country roughly $249 billion annually in healthcare, lost productivity, and social harm. Now compare that to kratom. I'm talking about natural whole leaf kratom, not synthetics like 7-OH. These are not the same. In a major CDC review covering 27,000 overdose deaths, kratom showed up in just 91 cases across the entire United States. And in almost every one of these, other drugs were also involved. The FDA itself acknowledges that kratom-only deaths are rare and that its role is unclear. We regulate and tax alcohol, a proven killer, and cannabis, yet we're debating banning a plant with centuries of safe traditional use and virtually no documented fatalities when used responsibly in whole leaf form. The data is clear. Kratom is dramatically safer than alcohol, and criminalizing.
Go, Dylan! Marcel, you did amazing. Yeah, You did freaking Marcel, amazing. you did fine, dude. You did great.
Please remember, you only got 1 minute to speak for public comment.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, my name is Christopher. I've been using plain leaf kratom, the tea form, for about a decade now. It's really amazing what a plant can do to help you. There's a lot of plants in nature we're still finding out about, and kratom's one of them that even NIDA has allotted $100 million of our taxpayer dollars to study for alcohol and opiate withdrawal. This plant has been used for centuries in Southeast Asia. Just the way you were talking about, I forget the doctors who was speaking previously said, yes, it has fibrous, has numerous alkaloids, and they're in balance. That's the way God intended the plant to be used. It has the balance of alkaloids. It has a ceiling. You can only use so much before it doesn't work anymore. That's the amazing part about it. This plant really needs to be studied, and there's already been a federal Kratom Consumer Protection Act filed in 2023, Bill S-3039, and that bill would regulate Kratom, and that is still to be introduced and adopted by numerous states in the United States.
Go, Chris!
Venus, your microphone's now available.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, good evening. My name is Venus Usher, and I'm here to urge you to keep plain leaf kratom legal and regulated, not just for me, but for countless others who rely on it safely every day. In 2000, my life was turned upside down by an FDA-approved medication that caused kidney stones and constant pain. For 17 years, I fought to prove my pain was real. I was labeled a drug addict, sent to rehab, and even underwent unnecessary surgeries, including a botched hysterectomy. No one believed me and no one would help. And then 8.5 years ago, I discovered plain leaf kratom, a simple tea that changed everything. I didn't expect much, but the relief was almost immediate, better than anything I'd experienced in nearly 2 decades. It allowed me to finally undergo a 3-hour surgery that proved my pain was real. And even afterwards, it was plain leaf kratom, not prescription medication, that helped me heal. I had them remove my IV, I drank my tea, and it worked better. Since then, plain leaf kratom and cannabis have been my only source of pain relief. I don't crave it or chase a high. I'm clear-minded, functional, and present in my life again as a nana, a mother, a daughter, and a wife.
Thank you.
Yes! Clocking it. Y'all clocking it.
Bud, your microphone is now available.
We
Hello,
got
can you
Bud.
hear me?
Yes.
Hello, I started doing drugs when I was 13 because of the horrible life that I was given. I kept using illegal drugs for 17 years until I found kratom. I'm now almost 10 years clean from any drugs besides kratom and maybe once a month cannabis. Kratom changed my life. I go to the gym 3 times a week. I just bought a house. I have 4 kids, and without kratom, I'm not sure that I would be on this earth to be here for my kids. Something that no one has mentioned yet is that the reason kratom does not kill as many people as opiates is because kratom does not cause respiratory depression. 7-OH is dangerous. We need to ban 7-OH because it scares me, and I used to smoke heroin.
Yes, Bud.
Erica, your microphone's now available.
I did see. Hi, my name is Dr. Locke. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
So I'm an ER doctor. I'm also a family doctor, and I practice addiction medicine with addiction med boards pending. I think that everyone's experience with kratom that has been beneficial, that is wonderful. I see patients who have wonderful or beneficial experience with opioids, patients that have beneficial experiences with benzodiazepines. These are all very dangerous substances. Coca is also a plant. Opium is a plant. These are plants, and I think that what we are seeking to ban is not a plant. It is these highly synthetic products that are marketed to children in gas stations, right? This is not the plant. That's not the plant. This is a very dangerous substance. I see many overdoses in the emergency department that are unexplained, which we do not have the capacity to test for kratom because we do not have the capacity, because we don't have regulation around it at this point. I have seen this ruin people's lives in the emergency department. They come in terribly dependent on this substance.
Thank you.
She talking about 7-OH.
Athena, your microphone is now available.
Hi, I just want to echo that. Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, I just want to echo what many other people have said to you, which is that outright banning is not the way to go, that you need to slow down, look to what Texas is doing with a limit, look to what other counties are doing, because this is not going to help. As always, prohibition just means more illegal sales and unregulated dosages. Prohibition is not going to help our community. Please do not do that. And I also just want to say that it is really ableist for you to limit the time on people calling in. The people that are calling in are much more likely to be disabled or living in other parts of the county than you currently are. Often you don't even move your location. You cannot keep limiting the time of people calling in. It is completely unfair and prioritizes people that can physically get to your residence. Please do not do that. Stop limiting the people that are calling in. Do not ban Kratom. You will hurt people.
Yes. I don't know you, but I like that.
Amanda, your
Ableism at its
microphone is now
finest.
available.
Hi, my name is Amanda. I was stuck on pain medicine at the early age of 9 years old. I am 47 years old here now. 8.5 years ago, I found Kratom after losing my mom to the pain clinic. She died of a cocktail of medication over 8 months. So it scared me being on pain medicine my entire life. I needed to look for more of a holistic way to treat myself. In the 8.5 years that I've been taking Kratom, I have not had to consume over 50,000 pharmaceutical pills. I've gotten blood work every single 4 months, as well as yearly scans on my organs, and everything is drastically improving. I know that there's a lot of talk on the 7OH, and I get it. It freaks people out. But if we fully ban something, then that bans all scientific studies going forward on something that is beneficial to people. It is saving people's lives just as plain leaf is, and who am I to tell them that they cannot take it? I personally take 7OH. On occasions when my pain is way too bad, I live with 10 out of 20 of the most painful conditions to live with, trigeminal neuralgia being one of them.
Thank you.
Chris, your microphone's now available.
All right, can you hear me?
Yes.
All right, so yeah, I think there's a lot of good information here. The main thing I think that people should take away from this, that whole leaf kratom is not what is harming people, getting them addictive. It's the 7-OH, which is derived from it in a lab. So the one of the doctors mentioned that it's one of the main parts of kratom. It's absolutely not, and it shouldn't be labeled as kratom. People should be looking at the 7-OH. Also, Jordan from New Hope Botanicals that was on here earlier. He's a great resource, has plenty of studies, and explains it in a very easy to understand way. So I suggest you look at the New Hope Botanicals. They have a news section and they have information on 7-OH, why it's not kratom, and why the deaths that are being labeled from kratom are not what they say.
Yeah. I don't know you, Chris, but yeah.
I see for no further speakers online, Chair.
Thank you. You know, I think that we probably do have to spend some time looking at this
All right.
a little more deeper than trying to differentiate between what's natural and synthetic. I just looked at the AI, deep dive AI, they call it. And they're saying that in just last week, this got published last week, that in greater Los Angeles County of the 7 ODs, that 6 were synthetic and 3 were fatal, which were also synthetic, but all 3 had alcohol involved. So, you know, I had the idea that all of it was all synthetic, but I didn't know it was all natural. But it's probably something that we should take a deeper dive into as well. Supervisor Martinez?
Thank you. I want to start by thanking Supervisor DeSerpa for bringing this item forward. You know, I just want to be really frank. We have had callers from across the country come in and call right now, but what we just had in front of us was our county public health officer, representative from our sheriff's office. We've had 11 deaths locally in our county over 2 years, which is 11 deaths too many. So I think as a county, it's our job to set policies that protect the public health of our residents. It's pretty simple. So I'm going to be supporting this ordinance today. I'm grateful for all the people who called in who sounds like they've gotten their life together. Great. I don't want to dismiss their experience whatsoever. But what we're talking about is a local ordinance here in Santa Cruz County based on our local values about the public health for our children and our community. And that's why I'm going to be supporting this ordinance today. Thank you.
Supervisor Cummings?
Thank you, Chair. I actually have a bunch of questions. I mean, and I will say that sometimes when first readings of ordinances come before us without, a proposal of, let's move forward with something so we can have questions incorporated into the ordinance makes it really challenging for me because, if we adopt the first reading, that means it's going to come back for a second reading and then that becomes law. And I just have some concerns with how much outreach has been done throughout the community on this. I have some concerns with what the other jurisdictions are doing and the overall intent, because I think what we've heard is that overwhelmingly the people who called in, I think, agree with the fact that the highly potent, highly concentrated kratom is an issue and should be addressed. And I will say over this past weekend, I met with one of my friends and brought up the fact that this was going to be on our agenda, and he mentioned that his brother had had some issues with some of the highly concentrated kratom. That being said, I do know of people who struggle with opioid addiction, who've been addicted to opioids and use kratom as a substitute so that they can try to wean themselves off of highly addictive, highly lethal opioids. I also know that I also have concerns around the fact that, if we ban this, we're really just creating a black market where there is no regulation.
I love this guy.
Similarly, the person I know who is using kratom right now to help, get themselves off of opioids, how they got on opioids was that they were buying pills on the black market, and it turned out that they weren't getting what they thought they were, and ended up buying pills that were fentanyl and got addicted to fentanyl. Now they're
Holy
trying to get
shit.
themselves off of it because they're buying things on the black market, and those black market substances they were buying turned out that they weren't what they thought they were. So I just have concerns with the fact that if we move this to the black market so rapidly, that we will additionally see that if people are going to purchase what they think is kratom, could actually be tainted and can be laced with something like fentanyl, another product, which would make our efforts, not as meaningful. Additionally, I think I mentioned it's not clear what we're going to do in terms of the other jurisdictions. So if the county passes it, does that mean that Scotts Valley, Watsonville, Santa Cruz, and Capitola are planning on passing similar ordinances? When we had the cigarette filter item, that was one of the requirements, because we wanted to make sure that people aren't just going to drive across the street. You drive across 7th Ave from Beeks Market to Days Market, and maybe you could buy them in H. I don't know who was selling these. I think that's another issue that's come up, is I'm not sure. I don't know to the extent of who is selling these products throughout the county. But I think one of the real issues I have that has come up today is that the U.S. has had a history of creating a war on drugs, on nature and plants. It's clear that from folks who have been here today and have spoken to us, that overwhelmingly, again, they all agree synthetic is the problem, and that the plant-based substance has been around for hundreds, if not thousands of years, used in other countries in a way that has been healthy and beneficial for a variety of things that have been mentioned earlier, like pain relief and what have you. And I think that we should not be cutting off the opportunity for people to access those naturally occurring substances that are sold in natural forms in a healthy way. I do agree 100%. I think that it's good for us to find out from our state elected officials what is going on at the state level to regulate this, what is going on to test this, because we're finding it now being distributed more widely in stores. But there is a benefit of it, and I think somebody brought up coca, and that was another thing that brought this to mind for me, which is that I've been to Ecuador numerous times, and coca tea is just normal. Like, you can just go and you can go buy coca tea in grocery stores, and yet here it's considered a class 2 substance, and if you were possessing potentially coca tea, you could be charged with a felony for possession of that kind of substance, which seems ridiculous when you can go to a country and drink it regularly, and here all of a sudden it's this category 2 illegal drug. So as much as I want to support this today, I do think that having more conversation with, and it sounds like there's folks in our community who are on board with banning the more highly concentrated kratom, and having more information come forward that would be supportive of how we move in this direction, conversations with our state elected officials, what's going on at the federal level with discussing with Congressman Panetta, because I think that there is a win-win that we can reach here, and I think that that's been expressed today from folks who want to see us keep the natural occurring product available to folks, while maybe banning and getting rid of the highly synthetic, highly concentrated substances.
Supervisor Koenig? Yes, thank you, Chair. I also want to thank Supervisor DeSerba for bringing this to our attention and for bringing a draft ordinance for us to look at today. I appreciate all the work that went into that, and this was just not an issue that was on my radar, so I'm glad you brought it to our attention. I would sort of agree with some of the comments of Supervisor Cummings and Hernandez that I'd like to see a little bit more nuance in our policy approach here. I mean, I certainly agree the goal is to eliminate deaths related to Kratom and 7-OH, and definitely to keep it out of the hands of minors. And I just also think that, I mean, yes, people have called in from all over the country, but we also, I mean, clearly it has helped them. They feel passionately about this. I don't think that everyone we heard from today was simply a Kratom industry lobbyist. Although we had one of those too, self-admittedly, and that's fine, and I appreciate the transparency. So I'd be in favor of an ordinance that looks a little bit more like Orange County's, where they ban the sale of Kratom and 7-OH products to people under the age of 21 years old, and where they define a limit. And I don't know if this is the right limit, but they say, no, 2% of total Kratom alkaloids in the product. Below that can be sold, and above that cannot. It looks like Texas is a lot more restrictive. I think 0.1% total Kratom alkaloids. I don't know what the right number is, and I think it'd be great to have some feedback about what the right, sort of where the break is between natural and synthetic. And, the Orange County ordinance, of course, has other things like ensuring that age verification shall take place at sale, and that the products will not be attractive to children. So, generally where I am, happy to make a motion that tries to do those things.
I think one of the important things is to really distinguish between the synthetic and the natural or naturally based, right? I don't know how we could put that in any kind of motion. Supervisor Martinez.
In response to my colleagues, I think I can kind of see where this vote is going to head. The one thing that I'll just advise is that our county is a very robust health network that has expanded medication-assisted treatment practices, has trained addiction treatment specialists, practitioners in health clinics and in CBOs across the county on how to safely prescribe and monitor regulated treatment mechanisms. This is best practice, it's evidence-based, and it's what all the good work and advancements in healthcare have led us to. And so my hope is that as a potential revision to this ordinance may be coming forward, that it's based on guidance from our public health officer, from our addiction treatment specialists, and really takes into account the options available to expand medication-assisted treatment for those struggling with opioid dependency, which it sounds like was a number of the callers today. We have a system in place so people don't have to self-medicate or self-treat.
We
so my
wanted
hope
to.
is that anything we do helps to
That
build up
lady's
that
not
system.
rude.
Thank you.
Happy about.
If I could just respond for a moment. So the Kratom industry is more than $1 billion. And what you heard today were people that got an all-call email about what is happening here in Little Old Santa
Oh,
Cruz County.
hell.
And you heard from people all across this country. Most of them do not live here, okay? These are people that have a dependence on Kratom. You heard somebody say that they use it up to 4 or 5 times a day. It's because they're addicted to it, frankly.
Oh my
And it makes them feel
God.
good because if they don't use it, they go into withdrawal.
Oh
The
my-
treatment for Kratom withdrawal is buprenorphine, same as it would be with opioids.
I dare
This is a
somebody stop taking their
substance that is
Suboxone.
not good for people and certainly not good for our youth. It is a gateway drug to get kids hooked.
Oh my God.
So I will bring
Gateway
back a revised ordinance if that's what you're asking me to do, but I think the ordinance as it is written today is important for our county. And that you're sitting here responding to 10 people that called in from Virginia and Florida and Colorado. It kind of blows my mind, frankly. These are people that are already users of something that is addictive, and you're
No,
listening to them instead of listening to what was presented to you by 3 doctors and law enforcement. And we know we have overdoses in this county.
What about his friend?
So anyway.
Right.
Supervisor Cummings?
Yeah, I do just want to remind ourselves that those of us who don't deal with chronic pain are not taking drugs on a regular basis. And those of us who do have chronic pain are taking drugs on a regular basis, whether they're pharmaceutical or not. And I think that it's important to know that there are many pharmaceutical drugs. Oxycontin is one of them that has led to the opioid crisis that was prescribed through pharmacists. And I also think that there's equally drugs that have, I mean, we see commercials all the time where, there's commercials about drugs that then the side effects include like X, Y, Z, all the way through the alphabet of what the potential side effects can be. And so, but I hear the concern. And I also think that there are people out there who look for alternatives. They're not really into going to doctors or pharmacists. They're not into pharmaceutical drugs, and they look for alternatives. And it's what I heard today was there are some folks who use this naturally occurring substance that's been around for thousands of years as that alternative. And I think one of the big things that I do want to see come back with this is some kind of educational component, because we're not going to solve a problem here unless people understand what they're getting themselves into. And the lack of education, I think, is what gets people into these bad situations. Like
Informed
people should
consent.
know if you're buying kratom, like the 7-hydroxy, highly concentrated, can be highly addictive, and it can cause a lot of problems, and you shouldn't drink alcohol with it. And if you're looking to use natural kratom, here's what it looks like. Here's what it does.
Yes.
I think that there's a way to really use education, because what we've seen in the past is prohibition.
Mr. Fohawk got his head on straight.
And I think
That's my boy.
the step
That's
that we could
Mr.
take that will
T,
really
dude.
help get people to not use these substances or use them responsibly is education. And so my hope is that when this comes back, there can be some kind of a plan for education as well. And then I actually have one other question for the representative from the Sheriff's Department. Just want to know if you could say real briefly, like, what would the plan be then for enforcement?
Yeah, so we'd have to look at the program in its entirety, and then we could model it similar to our cannabis program or alcohol compliance. So I would see it would be synonymous to the other programs that we run, with an officer that would be dedicated to that, responding to complaints, doing investigations, education, all of the same programs.
Because that also, since that wasn't outlined in the ordinance, I really do think that it's important that people understand what that enforcement is going to look like. I know with the tobacco, we have the tobacco enforcement officer who goes by and they check, what's being sold. And so I think when this comes back, it would also be good for us to have some kind of, explanation of what enforcement's going to look like, especially, and then I think also like a timeline, like, are we going to give people time to get this off their shelves? Are they going to be forewarned, which also wasn't included, because I'd hate to see, a retailer, this passes 90 days goes by, and then all of a sudden they're like, oh my God, now I've got all this on my shelves and I'm getting fined. And so I think that it would be important for us to outline what the enforcement looks like as well.
Yeah, I agree. And I anticipate education, just as we're going to do with the nitrous program, similar.
Right.
Yeah, I will say too that I was going to recommend a sort of a long on-ramp if this passed today, so that it didn't go into effect until January 1st, so that there could be guidance shared with all of our medical practitioners in our county that people might not be able to get this anymore in the unincorporated area. And here are the options for treatment,
Put them
because
on
people are
shelves.
going to be withdrawing off of it. And I want to give them enough time to get themselves either in to see an addiction specialist doc or go to their
Oh my
primary
God,
care
dude.
and get buprenorphine or Suboxone or
see?
whatever they need.
That
So that was a piece. And then the other piece is similar to the nitrous ordinance that we passed. There was a plan for going out and working with all the retailers in the community to make sure they understood and give them time to take it off the shelves. So thank you.
So for the sake of process, I'm going to start by moving the recommended actions.
Second.
Madam Clerk?
Yes. Supervisor Koenig.
No.
Martinez.
Aye.
Cummings.
No.
DeSerpa.
Aye.
And Hernandez.
No.
All the dudes is on our
Motion fails.
side.
Three.
That's weird.
Motion fails.
No votes. Supervisor Hernandez, Supervisor Koenig, Supervisor Cummings.
All right, I'll move that this ordinance return to us at, that county council work on this ordinance and bring a revision back to us at a future meeting that includes banning the sale of all Kratom and 7OH products to a person under 21 years of age, that requires any individual business or other entity that sells, attempts to sell, offers, provides, or distributes a Kratom product or a 7OH product to conduct age verification to ensure compliance with this subdivision, and which bans 7OH products with a level of 7-hydroxy
Okay.
mitragynine that is that is at a level that is greater than a certain level, that level to be recommended by or to have sorry, input on that, what that break
Yeah,
point
Marcel.
is
For
to
sure.
be provided by our county health officer, and to be informed by other jurisdictions' ordinances.
So we're keeping the synthetic in this motion? Not working.
I am. I'm looking at the Orange County ordinance. Sure, yes. I'll move that we receive an updated version of this ordinance with input from county council modeled off the Orange County ordinance, which does distinguish between natural Kratom products and synthetic products.
I'll second. And then I do hope that can involve communication with some of the folks who are who've come to us today from that community, just so that they can weigh in. I mean, we're going to have our public health, it sounds like, weighing in, but also having some of the folks who work in that industry kind of weigh in as well. It sounds like, again, everybody's pretty clear about the synthetic and not wanting that, and the natural and what that is. I think it's up to us to try to better define with some input from folks who work within that industry.
I wish we could hear the other dude talking.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I guess his mic's messed up.
I have two volunteers.
I mean,
It's
I'm
my
not, sure,
ordinance.
I'm not sure that we need a subcommittee. Yeah, I think that
Bring it back.
Supervisor DeSerpa.
Some of the recommendations that you've made.
And I would just encourage that there's outreach to some of the folks who've been here today. There are people here who locally have been advocates for natural Kratom and not the synthetic. And so I think it's worth engaging with the stakeholders so that we can find a compromise that will work for people who see this as a benefit for themselves and, you know, can provide their input on this as well. And then I would also just add as a friendly amendment that we also come back with, we have a return with recommendations for education and outreach to not only retailers, but also to members of the community to educate them on the,
I love that.
On what
Yeah.
Kratom is and
I would be willing to go down there and do it myself.
Any other comments, questions before we take roll call?
Those women do not look happy, and I don't
Is
give
there
a
any more
shit.
comments or questions before we take roll call? Seeing none, Madam Clerk?
If possible, could we have a restating of the mover and seconder?
It was Supervisor Koenig and the seconder was Supervisor Cummings.
Thank you. Supervisor DeSerpa,
Aye.
Cummings,
Aye.
Martinez,
Aye.
Koenig,
Aye.
and Hernandez.
Aye. Motion passes unanimously.
I don't know what they passed though. Either
Now
way, it
we'll
wasn't the
move
band.
to
Yeah.
Back up to 15, correct? We're going back and forth all day here.
To bring the amended one forwarded is what Jen Mercier thinks.
Okay.
Next agenda item is number 15. Consider
All
report
right.
on
So
Yeah,
that's
now
it.
we can end this one and get ready for Tustin.
and
Yeah,
recommendations
did you
based
get
on
the
the work of
link?
the Youth Advisory
Yeah, I got the
Task
link.
Force.
Okay.
Approved
Marcel, if
concept
you're up
ordinance
and ready
amending
for
sections
it, there's a Tustin,
2.38,
California hearing coming up.
0.70C of the Santa Cruz County Code relating to decision-making, subordinate bodies,
I
adopt a
know,
resolution
Jen.
amending
All right,
Appendix
we're gonna
A,
end this one.
designated
We'll see y'all
positions
back in about
of
an
Unified
hour
Conflict
and
of
15.
Interest
Yep.
Code